for doing so. You know the score. Use the reaction section to ask your questions to Josh using raise your hand in that. We will come to you one by one, and we have approximately 20 minutes with Josh today. So we will wrap up at about 1:35. You all should have permission to record. You will certainly have it shortly as Laura works her way through those permissions. If you don't have it now, you'll have it in a second. I will go on mute very shortly to save that background noise, but we will start with Chris Bills. Chris, over to you.
Thanks, Tom. Josh, something I've been kind of thinking about since this weekend. I was wondering if you had some thoughts, like just your approach to these matches. It seems like you guys are really, after the 3 points and, focusing on scoring and attacking. Is there a sense that, do you feel like you maybe need to adjust that approach at all for the rest of this road stretch to try and squeeze, maybe a draw or two and make sure you're, making the most of some of the matches coming up?
I think we approach it both offensively and defensively in a pretty, well thought out way. Some of the execution doesn't always come off, and I think there's been some similarities with some of the struggles against Kansas City and some of the moments in LA Galaxy. But yeah, of course we need to get better in certain areas, but we have these games that are on the road, and we've known that the whole time, and it's still very much about who we are and what we're trying to do right now. I'm not so concerned with making massive adjustments or changes with our group based on results. We have a process, and we have a way that we want to play, and we're learning more about ourselves each week. We're learning more about the opponents, and we just got to get better at what we're doing and executing and understanding exactly the details and the discipline that's required. And there's a level of intensity and focus all the time. These are good opponents, and these are good, well-coached teams, and there's different things happening each game. And now I think we've played a number of games, and teams have looked at us as well. And that's part of the evolving, part of our evolving as well. But it's not to say that we don't care about defending. I think as you were putting it right there, but we got to make some improvements at both ends of the field.
Mike Craven.
Coach, how much of a toll has all of the travel taken, and what's the message for the team on that day off? Just kind of stay away from everything and get some rest, or what do you want them doing on that day?
Yeah, I think day offs are intended for just that. Some guys, if they have some issues, maybe they need to get some follow up. But this leading into the Galaxy game, we had 1 day less, so now we have a little bit more this week. We had basically 1 day extra, kind of, because we play on Sunday night. So there's obviously constantly aware of guys getting refueled and recovering. We've had a few injuries, which we'll obviously continue to deal with. But I think guys come into these games fairly fresh. I mentioned us lacking energy at the beginning of this last game, but it was probably more just a lack of change of tempo and urgency in certain moments, because we still covered ground. We still had the high speed running, and some of that can be done on the defensive side as well as the offensive side. But, that side of it was okay. It's just more the speed of our actions, of our passing, of our movements, where we're positioned. So we're always going to be aware of our freshness. We're mindful of that. We want to come into every game prepared and in a place that's fresh and ready to compete. Because again, these teams are amped up. They're at home, and they're all good opponents. So we got to be at our very best, and we're still learning what that looks like, and that's part of the challenge each week.
Phil West.
Thanks, Tom. Hey, Josh, wanted to ask you a little bit about Hozen. Obviously still looking for his first goal. It looks like he was pretty isolated in the game. Is there anything that the Galaxy was doing there to neutralize him, where you want to maybe kind of factor that in for next games, or what's going on there?
I think we need to be have better positioning, better ideas in the final third. I think we've watched the video. We've talked about it a little bit after reviewing it. The idea of us crossing balls isn't what I envision us looking like. There's areas that we want to get in for early crosses. There's parts of the field that we want to get that are deeper and closer to the end line and closer to goal, to now ask different questions of their back line. But crossing balls to Danny and him dealing with two center backs and a fullback is not ideal for Danny. So we got to have more balance in the way that we address their back line. Balls behind their line. We didn't threaten their line enough. We didn't run behind their line enough with our wingers or our attacking mids. So there's a number of things that we need to do better, and that will give more support to Danny. He's a goal scorer. He needs service, but we need other guys in the box as well. And then now you have more questions to be asked of them when they are defending some of these other crosses that aren't just 5 yards from the sideline. So we can do much better in the offensive, in our offensive structure and execution to help him. You know, he needs guys, he needs service, and we need to get better at that.
Arch Bell.
Thank you, Tom. Josh, what do you need to see, or what needs to happen for Rodney to be more of a protagonist in this team, you know, to win back that starting spot and to have more of an influence and impact in games? What do you need to see from him for him to get back into the more of that protagonist role in this squad?
Yeah, I think it's with most of our wingers, it's, you know, how are they going to influence the game? How can they affect the opponent, both offensively and defensively? I think, you know, Rodney had a very good preseason and he was in a good spot. He had a little bit of a ding against Dallas. So we've had to monitor that situation with his knee. And that's certainly been something that's kind of hindered his time with us. And Jared's performed pretty well. So I think those things go hand in hand. And now when he comes on the field to be impactful, I think against Minnesota, he came in, he was fairly impactful, and he needs to continue to do that in training and in games, and also just have better understanding of positioning and timing of movements. But Rodney's gonna, you know, have a lot of success for us, and he's in, you know, in the growth stages as are most of our players. But with all of them, it's about maximizing opportunity when opportunity provides itself. And then really having good understanding of his roles and responsibilities offensively and defensively.
Dennis De La Pena.
Hey, Coach, you talked about freshness, and I know that's physical and mental. When you're kind of in this, I mean, you're in it right now on the road. How much do you lean on your veterans to kind of shepherd either the younger guys or the new MLS guys through a tough patch?
Yeah, it's always, you know, first I think it's having good expectations. I mean, I think guys have we have an experienced group that's, you know, good experience domestically, good experience internationally. And it's also being, you know, aware of what this expectation is that this is going to look like. I don't think anyone envisioned we're going to roll into these 8 games and come out with 6 wins. But, you know, we do need to remain competitive and look for the points when we can get them. And our experienced guys and the leaders within the group recognize that. So there's a professionalism every day that's expected, but there is an enjoyment part of it. These guys do need to stay fresh. They need to enjoy coming to work every day. They need to obviously learn what we're trying to do, and we need to teach it in a way that makes it easier to understand. But we're growing. We're in our growth stage here, and there's plenty of things that we're working on daily. And you know, it's a long-term process, and we're going to continue to function from our base structure and the process that keeps us in, you know, our work each and every day. And you know, the growth will come, but it's not gonna happen instantly. And I think we're all mindful of that.
Thanks.
Mark Turner.
Hey, Coach. I was going to talk to you about the last game and about how Galaxy sat deep and then tried to counter, and how with Nashville, they're going to do that to the nth degree, and having Alex Ringman enable us to open the game up. But it occurred to me, we've talked a lot over the last couple of weeks about fatigue and about the need to decompress and kind of players to take care of themselves. And so I'm wondering, what are you able to do, Coach? How do you decompress? How are you disconnecting? How are you making sure that you have the downtime you need?
Such a caring question. I have kids, so I go home and I have kids that take my mind. I have kids that take my mind off the game, which is always nice. But you come to terms with what this job looks like and the demands, and you get used to it. The brain is always thinking about it, and how we can make it better, the things that we need to do and address within the group. But it's also just constantly communicating with the staff and with the guys. I think it's very important, whether you're winning or losing. these relationships and communication is critical. And, you don't leave things unaddressed and unspoken about. You constantly talk about it. And again, I think we all recognize there's room for improvement. That's going to be the case all year. Whether 20-year-old, whether it's 25-year-old or 30-year-old, we're winning or we're losing, there's always opportunity to keep getting better. And again, come to work and enjoy what you're doing, but also maintain the competitive edge. And, I don't necessarily decompress, but I find my time to get away from it, but it's always there, and it should be. It's these are great opportunities and great responsibilities for players and coaches.
I don't mind jumping in here if Alex is moving.
Sorry, having a tech issue. Tom Bogut is next, actually.
Thanks, Tom. Josh, what similarities do you see between your expansion season and Nashville's last year, or is there kind of anything that you directly borrowed for them or were inspired by, good practices from their expansion year last year?
I don't know. I'll leave that to others that watch it and want to compare it. That's not for me to really talk about what they did and how they went about their business, but they were certainly competitive and remain competitive. And I think that for us was, one of the things that we said, we want to build a team that's, balanced and certainly we have the way that we want to play and the people that we feel can come in and help us execute that. And I think we've seen that. So, there's lots of positives, and obviously there's losses along the way. So there's plenty of room for growth, but we'll continue to push in the direction that we're going and continue to get better. But Nashville did a good job, obviously, coming in last year and being competitive and making the playoffs, and they've remained that way. So I think you recognize that they built a strong roster as well, with a good mix of domestic experience and introducing some international experience. So, but a good group.
Next up, Ben Bear.
Hi, Josh. Tom actually kind of just asked the question I was going to ask, but I would just piggyback off that a little bit and ask, the way that they play is obviously different than the way that you set your team up. So how do you, compare what they were able to accomplish with the way that they play with the way that you want to play?
I think it's like anything. You have an idea what you want, your playing style to look like. You go out and start bringing players in that support that and will give you the things that you want. And then along the way, you keep evolving. I think that's, that was seen last year with Nashville. They were difficult to play against. And along the way, they became better offensively. And that's the growth that typically can happen, but it does take time. And I think for us, that's, we're aware of that as well. So we've had a lot of progress in, our 5 games, and, we're certainly in need of continuing to progress, but that's part of the deal. And we need to get better at finishing attacks. We need to get better with some of our mid-block defending. And these are all things we'll continue to work on.
Next up, Kirk Bowles.
Thanks, Tom. Josh, what is your degree of satisfaction and disappointment in your 2 DPs, Tomas and Cecilia, after 5 matches?
Yeah, I think I think they're both they're coming along as expected. It's a new league. They are experienced players. They played in obviously in Argentina and in Mexico. So they have good understanding, good soccer acumen, high quality, and there's always an adaptation to MLS. And anytime a player goes to another league, there's an adaptation period. So I think they're doing well, and we're trying to better orientate them to their roles and responsibilities inside what we're trying to do as a team. And it's been good. Again, I think there's been good growth there, and there's going to need to be continued growth, but they come and they work hard. They're very honest workers, and those relationships are good. And again, I expect them to only get better as they get more familiar with the league, the opponents, and their teammates. But they've been performing well.
Are they frustrated at all?
I don't think so. I mean, I don't think anyone likes to lose necessarily, but I think they also understand they're in a new space. They're in a new team as well. And our players are learning about them just as they're learning about the players. So, because we lose games, I don't think it means people get frustrated. So we stick to our process and we have constant communication. And I think that's, those are the important things when you're trying to grow the group, and individuals have roles in all of that. And we as coaches have a big role in that. So that's part of what we do on the daily.
Bob Ballou.
Hey, Josh, I just want to build off what Mike and Dennis asked about the road trip. Is it a little overstated because it's not like you're away from Austin for 8 weeks, but at the same time, is it more of the mental grind of knowing you don't have the support, the energy of a full fan base, in a stadium? Obviously you've had good fans on the road, but just not having the full fan base. What's the mental grind of that part of it versus maybe just the trying to stay fresh through all of it?
Yeah, I think it's always, there's a different, I think there's different energy when you're playing in front of your fans, and we haven't experienced that yet. So we face that in each one of these games. We do have fans present at these away games, so that is nice, but there's a natural comfortability of playing at home and, being in your own city, being in your own bed, waking up on your own time, your norms, so to speak. And then obviously the energy that your fans can bring can elevate things. And we look forward to having that opportunity, but we knew this was the case. And again, we've set out to achieve, what we can achieve within these 8 games that are on the road. And we're trying to build our game model, gain understanding individually what that looks like, obviously get points along the way. But it's still about growth. It's still about developing our certainly philosophically how we want to play, how we want to execute, and obviously getting results along the way is important, but a big focus has been on us and playing and learning what it feels like to go in against different opponents now and still be able to do the things that we want to do. And a lot of that we've executed well. And, there's plenty of things at both ends that, those final little pieces in front of goal and those final little pieces defending goal that we got to get better at. So, but we look forward to getting home.
We're going to get Eric Goodman and then we'll come to Chris.
Hey, Josh, we got salary information from the MLSPA last week. You guys are, I think, second from bottom, and obviously this is a salary capped league, so that can have its advantages. I'm just wondering how much of that is by design? How much of that do you have influence in, and what opportunities for improving the squad does that kind of allow you guys sitting kind of pretty low on the totem pole where you are?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how that's equated. What's taken into account when those numbers come out. So the accuracy of that, I don't know. But, our team and our ownership's given us resources to go out and get players, and we've done that. So we feel like we built a pretty solid team and have been responsible with our spending. But I think there's plenty of opportunity to add players, and we continue to do that currently, and we'll look to do that in the summer, and we'll certainly look to do it in the off season. But trying to make our team better all the time is part of what we do. And that's not just the working on the field now, but that's obviously being aware of what types of players we can bring in.
Chris Bills, and then we're going to come to Jorge Iturralde for the last question. Chris, over to you.
Yeah, Josh, we saw Cecilia obviously come in and play a little bit at that 9, I think for the last 30 minutes on Saturday with Kakuta Mane. I thought, you guys, obviously Kakuta had 4 shots, which was the highest on the team. What kind of led to that success with those 2 on the pitch? And is that something that you're considering seeing more of? And I guess tying into that, what's John's status for this weekend?
Yeah, I think it's a certainly part of the situation. We didn't have another natural striker necessarily. So Cecilia's played as a second striker, or I think even at times down in Guarani, he played as a striker. So, I think he brought good energy, good tempo, and obviously he brings good quality in and around goal. And that, I think Kakuta also brought what we expect. Is he's got good individual quality, and his ability to combine and go 1v1 is nice. And, I think he certainly created some chances there. We could have made it 1-1, which would have been great. And, that's what you like. I think the subs again came in and gave us a little bit of a lift and a bit of pop. And, and Cecilia also has had some energy as a forward, pressing and running as a striker. We obviously need to talk a little bit more about, positioning as to what that would look like, more consistently, if that's a position that he plays for us. But given where we were at with the lack of another true forward, it made sense. And was glad for him. He did fine. And for John, we're just waiting to see how he can keep progressing this week to see when he can get introduced in full sessions. But we're hopeful that he'll join us at some point this week in training.
And finally, Jorge Iturralde, and then we're going to wrap up.
Thank you. Hi, Josh. We're going to have Los Verdes president at the studio today. This is out of context, out of the field. I would like to know, what do you guys talk, or how important is the fan base for you guys in between games, on half times? If you heard the support, especially like in games like in Colorado, in Kansas, how important is the fan base to you, and how motivated is during the games?
It's helpful. It's really helpful. Again, in Colorado, it was an incredible experience. They were outside our bus when we arrived. They were in the stands right there when we came on the field. And obviously we scored goals right in front of them. So there was, in that moment and in other moments, obviously they were in Minnesota, they were in Kansas City. So I think it's extremely motivating for the players. It's always nice to see your fans, to see your jerseys, to see your colors in the stands. And, I've seen the watch parties. I've seen the energy behind the team and the excitement behind the team. And the players see it. They feel it. And that's why it'll be really nice to come home, without a doubt, to be in our stadium with this fan base, how much support the community's already shown. And, we got to continue to try to get our points on the road in these next few games, but very much look forward to coming home. They've been nothing but supportive, and we know that they'll be there in force when we do get to come home and play.
Do you guys already know any, like, if you win a cup, a tournament, where the people is going to celebrate? The capital, maybe?
I don't know. You tell me. What's the spot here? What streets should we pick out if that happens? You guys bring that information. You guys, the locals, Congress Street or Lamar. You let me know which streets are the best.
We're all going to Jorge's house.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Josh. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
I think we just confirmed that.